Welcome to Lighting the Way Today, a place where we discuss how to connect God's Word with topics relevant to everyday life. We hope this conversation encourages, enlightens, and inspires you. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome back to Lighting the Way Today. I'm Sierra Bergman. I'm hanging out with Hunter Mullins, and we are thankful that you're tuning in to what we have for you today. This episode is being launched in the middle of December, and as we're heading into the end of the year, I've been thinking a lot about how much change can happen in just 12 months. I mean, think about it. How much has changed in our routines, our responsibilities, our relationships, our families? There even may be some change in our spiritual focus. Change is something every one of us walks through, sometimes willingly, and sometimes, not so willingly. But the beautiful part is that God doesn't change. And with God, change does not have to feel like chaos. It can actually be a doorway to something powerful.
And that's something that's really exciting about today's conversation because it hits all of that. Taylor Thurlow got to sit down with a wonderful couple, Jared and Nancy Torell, who recently graduated from our ministry's leadership training program and have gone through a pretty big series of changes over the last few years. And what I loved about this conversation is just how honest they were about the surprises, the challenges, and the victories. They share not just what happened, but the mindsets and the believing that helped them move through each change with grace and strength. And I think you'll really connect with their heart and their practical, godly perspective.
So, whether you're stepping into a new season yourself or you're just trying to figure out how to stay steady when things shift around you, this episode is full of encouragement. So, we invite you to take a deep breath and settle in. Our heart is that this inspires you to walk confidently and powerfully through whatever change God is guiding you into and through. Let's listen into today's conversation.
All right. Today we're talking about walking powerfully through change, and we've got two lovely guests who are going to take us through some things they've learned about this topic. Jared and Nancy Torell recently became ministers, and in August they were sent out on their first official assignment to the North DC area. Jared and Nancy, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks, Taylor. Great to be here.
We're super happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. All right. Let's talk about change, because change is a major aspect of life. It's an important thing to learn how to deal with. It can add pressure. It may seem daunting, or at least, adding a lot of unfamiliar things. It can challenge good habits, good practices that we build into our lives, but it can also be refreshing. It can be a time to reset. And as Christians, we have a constant, right? Malachi 3:6 in the ESV, for I, the Lord, do not change. So we've got God to lean on when everything else may be changing around us. So whether we're going through something that's planned or unexpected, we want to be able to adapt and to get God's help in the situation. And that's what today's episode is about, finding his solutions and handling change well. So you two have done something different almost every year that you guys have known each other. So why don't you take us back the past few years? Just tell us a little bit about your past couple years of your life.
Well, in the last 5 years, we got engaged, married, and had 5 major moves. And most of those changes have involved pretty big new chapters, different locations, jobs, different stages of life,
Mhm.
and the list goes on. And with that, it's been, a big adventure, but it hasn't been without challenges. And being engaged and getting married in and of itself is a huge change. And just a few months after we got married, we applied for our minister's training program, the Way Corps. Yet just like 3 or 4 months after we got married, we, knew that was what God was calling us to do. So that's just a little bit of it. And then
Yeah, and then we went off for 1 year in a different city with a team of people we had not really met before. We went on our ministry's outreach program to speak the word, and we had a team of people with different ages, different backgrounds, cultures, experiences, and it definitely had challenges. It was a fantastic year, but the thing that got us to really grow together was that unity of purpose. And that that just helped us with all the change and the newness. And now they're some of our closest friends, which is cool to see how you can grow together and have the word at the center. Then the next 2 years, we went to our ministry headquarters in Ohio, and that's where we did our ministerial training. And while you're there, there's tons and tons of change and transition. You get new jobs all the time. You go through different classes. You move rooms. You spend time in Colorado and then back at headquarters in Ohio. And then now here we are in Rockville, Maryland, in the North DC area, serving here for a few months as Wakemore ministers.
Awesome. Yeah. So you guys have gone through a lot of different seasons of life, done a lot of different things. And I think you guys are great examples of being peaceful and leaning on God and just overcoming in those situations. So, can we talk a little bit about what is so difficult for people when they're going through a transition, when they're going through change? What is it that, can cause us to stress out?
Yeah, transitions, they're fun times. Sometimes they're filled with challenge and excitement. You can have different emotions, and it's funny because they're gonna find us, whether we want to have a change or not. Sometimes we seek it out, and other times it happens to us. And psychologically, I know that our brains would much prefer that routine. There's comfort in routine, knowing what to expect and having a certain schedule, but we go through change. Our lives are not stagnant. And I've heard it said that nothing grows in our comfort zone. And I think that's a beautiful saying, just to know that even if you're feeling uncomfortable and maybe the things are piling up in your mind of how am I going to do this and how am I going to do that, you can see, oh, I'm going through a challenge, so I'm gonna grow through this. I'm gonna have opportunities to improve on myself. And when we face adversity and challenge, that's a big time for growth.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that usually in any transition or change, whatever the thing is that's changing, that transition and change itself affects way more than just the one thing that's changing, the one variable.
Right.
It can be positive or negative, expected, unexpected. There can be very powerful emotions around different change and transitions. And the reality is these times require an increased focus and attention to this time. And it just doesn't always feel to us like we have the time and energy to handle that initially. It can feel very overwhelming. And so we have God and we have his word and he is the constant in our lives. But that can be, I think, part of what makes them so difficult at times.
So many unknowns at times, starting into adventure, a new chapter. Sometimes it feels like I don't know what I'm doing at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are times where it could actually be that. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I do know God's got my back. Like you said at the beginning, Taylor, in that verse in Malachi, he's the constant. He doesn't change. And even though some of those big transitions can feel overwhelming with the long list of to-dos and all the adjustments I have to make in my life, and how things can really start to pile up mentally or physically when we don't give it to God, when we're relying on our own ability, and we can get so busy that we forget to do the basics, get God involved and pray and have God be a part of it and let him bear the load for us. So relying on our own strength is not a place we want to be at. We're talented, can do so much, but God's ability is so much greater. And I love this verse in 2 Corinthians 3, verse 5 in the King James. It says, "Not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God." And just always going back to God is the one who supplies. I don't have to do it all. And that is freeing. To be able to give it to God and not have to bear all of that weight it's freeing.
Yeah. Another thing that can make it stressful, turn to stress, is the wanting everything now mentality. And I know that I've definitely had to grow in this category, just growing in patience. There's so much going on in different transitions and changes. And like specifically, for an example, moving, there's a lot of variables. There's jobs, there's housing, there's settling in, there's all these things. And it can be tempting to be like, I just want to hurry up and get it all in place so that we can move forward. And that mentality just doesn't get us very far. It ends up, being very frustrating because that's not realistic. That's just not how it works.
Hmm.
And so instead of getting that sense of stability from those things, we get to rely on God as our source of stability. That stability doesn't come from having all of our ducks in a row per se. It's from trusting in the source of stability, God. And I love reminding myself that He is our constant source of stability and always provides for His children. The world is about now, 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 right? We need to have it right now all the time. But we don't have to live that way because we know God's supplying our need. So we can just keep taking that next step and know He's right there. And the feelings that I was referring to before, like, oh, I just want to have all this now and have it all in a row. That doesn't equal our reality. God is at work. He's taking care of us. So we don't have to get caught up in all the feelings that we can be tempted to get whisked away in times of big change or transition to have it all settled.
That's great. Yeah. It's uncomfortable for us.
Yeah.
Not knowing what's going on. And I love what you said, So if you're someone out there who's just like, I don't know at all what's going on right now, all my routines are broken, everything, it's all right. You don't need to. God knows. God's going to guide you through it. You're going to grow into this situation. It may take time. That's wonderful. Lean on God. So over the past couple of years, all the different transitions and things that you guys have done, can you talk about maybe some of the times that were more difficult that really kind of threw you through a loop and what you learned from that?
Yeah, there's definitely been some unexpected change in our lives and different transitions in that. And one that I can think of is a few years ago, we were preparing to enter the minister training program. And we were coming back from a vacation, visiting some friends in the springtime, and we arrived home to the news that we had to be out of our house in 30 days. And we were not planning to move for several months. And so that was certainly unexpected. And it was like,
Had you guys been paying rent, by the way?
Yeah, very much so.
very
Oh,
much.
man. All right. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I was just checking.
Yeah. So we get home. It was like we pulled into the driveway and we find out this information. And so we were just confused and like, what is going on? What do you mean? Because that wasn't our understanding of what was happening. We thought we were going to be in there at least 3-ish more months before we embarked on this program we were going to be doing. And it was a lot to take in. And to be completely honest, I was unwell for the first day or two. It just took me a little while to wrap my head around it.
Sure. Yeah.
But ultimately, once that kind of we like worked through that a little bit. I know we were talking with a minister on the phone that was kind of helping us, and I was like venting. I was just sharing all my feelings. Just I can't believe that this is happening, and
Hmm.
he was listening, so loving, just hearing us out. And then at one point, he kind of chuckled, and I was like, "What is so funny? Why is this funny?" And he said something to the effect of, "Oh, look, this is part of life." And it wasn't in the sense of get used to it. This is part of life.
Yeah. Right.
It was just to help us. It really did in that moment help me to step back and realize I thought of a quote that I've heard so many times from many different people to put things in perspective that, 100 years from now, this isn't going to matter. And that came to mind, I remember, during this conversation, that was what he was trying to help us see.
Mhm.
Yes, this feels so big and really tough right now, but in 100 years or even in a year from then, it's not going to matter,
Mhm.
And so once we sat down and just, okay, what do we really need to do? Like, what are the needs? Put the feelings aside, the emotions that were running high at that moment, and then be like, okay, what do we need? And it was like just reminding ourselves of Philippians 4:19. God will supply all our need. And he already knew this was going to happen. He already knew the solutions. And so once we put things in perspective, we were able to move forward with great peace. And that doesn't mean that it was easy to do it. There were still moments that were bittersweet or kind of tough as we packed, as we figured things out. But within a week or two, we had a place to stay. Everything was taken care of. My mom came to help us get all the house sorted. The believers that were in the area, they came and everybody chipped in. And it was just so awesome to see. And what was so cool is in the end, it was better
Mhm.
that we moved out of
Yeah.
the house when we did. Like, we remember talking and being like, "Gosh, I thought this would be harder." Like, it was so great looking back on that summer, and it really made the bigger transition of us beginning this program so much smoother. So, it was really neat to see God just provide for us, and in that very unexpected moment, to see how he just went to work for us and took care of us, so
That's awesome. Thank you.
mhm.
So another key that definitely helped us with that transition, getting asked to leave our house early was zooming out. And Nancy kind of touched on this with in 100 years, it's not going to matter. Zooming out, we see 3 months isn't that big of a deal. It's a tiny drop in the bucket, so to speak. And another thing, just with any transition, we don't do things perfectly. We're going to learn from it. And maybe we got bumped up along the way, but we cling to the good and we hold fast to the learning and we use it to do better. And then we can help other people too. So as we go through change, it's important to remember that our capacity grows. We level up, so to speak. It's not like this is my first time going through a change and I'm starting at square one. I've been through some things. I've learned and I've grown. And so I'm starting a new job for the fourth time. It's not like the very first time again.
Mhm.
And one thing that's really helped me, and we did this a lot in our training, was journaling. I have lists where I've made lists of ways God's come through in different changes and challenges, and it helps to build my believing. So we can recount those victories. And as we level up, it reminds me of these couple verses in Romans chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. In the English Standard Version, it puts it really well. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. So we grow. We don't stay the same. And when we face challenges, we're not thankful that we're going through a hard time or a big change always, but we're thankful for the opportunity to grow and to get better. One of my big ones with knowing God's victories and seeing those past victories, I think about David when he fought Goliath. So he went up to King Saul in the book of Samuel and said, "Hey, I want to fight this Philistine." And Saul basically says, "You're crazy. This man is a man of war, and you're just a kid, so there's no way." But David recounts his past victories. He said, "I kept my father's sheep, and a lion came, and a bear came, and I slew him, and this Philistine Goliath, he'll be the exact same." And to me, I can just see the growth and the building of confidence as David is saying. And so with myself, just focusing on the things that God's done for me and how I've come through some different things. And that helped me a lot with one of the biggest challenges with change and transition is going on currently with my new job, but it's gotten so much better. Just for a little background, I worked in my profession for 1 year and then I took 3 years off for my minister training. And so I had all of these five senses facts, if you want to call them that, as to why it would be hard to get back into my career, or people wouldn't even want to hire me because of my lack of experience and time off. And I was applying for jobs well after the usual window for hiring. So it was daunting in some aspects, and I had to grab my mind and think about those past victories that God helped me with. So another funny part is you're seeking out that change. I get the job, and then it's like, oh, now I actually have to go do the thing that I was believing for.
Right.
And I think about that with many transitions and change for anybody. Maybe you want to move to a new city and you finally get everything in line and you move, and then it's like, oh, now I have to do the thing. I planned for the thing, I got it, now I have to do it. And it can feel challenging.
That reminds me of Romans 5, starting in verse 3. And not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience, patience experience, experience hope, and hope maketh not ashamed. And just talking about as you go through these things, I don't know if it's necessarily comforting in the moment. I'm going to be better after this. Like, I'm in the moment, you're just like going through it. But it's real. Your capacity grows. You get that log of victories. You see God come through for you. And then the next time you come up against something, maybe it's the same level of change or it just doesn't seem the same. It doesn't have the same effect because you've gone through it. You've proven God. You've handled the situation. So that's a great key. Can we talk about some keys? You talked about zooming out. You talked about leaning on your log of victories. What are some other keys that you guys have seen in these transitions as you've gone through have really helped you navigate them well, especially in the unfamiliar territories? Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah, definitely. When we go through a big transition, especially one that we know is coming, that's a great time to build those good habits. Those habits that really help out with getting our bearings and keeping us strong, especially spiritually, because that's going to trickle down into everything spiritually, physically, emotionally. And we have non negotiables, we call. So I'm going to get up at a certain time. I'm going to spend time in the Word. I'm going to pray. I'm going to talk to God. And same thing with at night, spending time with God to end the day, or making sure I get the proper nutrition and rest. And so there's things that we can do to set ourselves up for success. Because when we're in the midst of that change and it feels like everything's different and we don't have a routine, some of those good habits can be the first ones to go, especially if they're not solidified. And a funny little story with that is during one of our large transitions, I just remember one day I forgot to put on deodorant. And I was like, "What? I haven't forgot to do that in years."
Right.
But it was just because there was so much change going on and my mind was occupied and I forgot to do something.
Right. Yeah.
So we make sure that we build those habits as soon as we can. And then seeing that, our mental state and our stamina for adversity will increase depending on how much time we communicate with God. The more time I'm communicating and pouring my heart out to God and asking for his help and getting him involved, the better I'm going to do when I'm facing challenges. Another awesome key is having a support system. If you're married, you got a built-in support system right there. You got a spouse, or if you got a good friend, a family member, anyone who can mentor you and give you the word, build you up, maybe someone who's got more experience or been through some of the things that you're about to go through. Like Nancy said, we called a minister that we're real close with, and he was able to help us out tremendously.
Yeah, I think another big key is traveling light, and that is physically and mentally, and just finding joy in the little things. In any change or transition, there's a lot that's on our mind, there's a lot that we're uncertain of, and like we said before, it can feel like it's kind of piling up, and the pressure can feel like it's on us to figure it all out, but it's not. It's not on us to have the solutions. And Psalm 18:32 and 33 says, "It is God that girdeth me with strength and maketh my way perfect. He maketh my feet like hinds feet and setteth me upon my high places." And I really love these two verses and remind myself of them very often, especially in this most recent transition, because it reminds me that it's not my strength, it's God that girdeth me with strength, and he makes our way perfect. And in verse 33, it talks about the hind's feet. This is like an analogy of like a mother deer with the baby deer and how the mother paves the way. They walk first and then the baby deer follows behind. So the baby deer still has to move
Hmm.
and make moves,
Hmm.
but it's following its mother. And God says, "It setteth me upon my high places." So he sets us completely up for success. So that helps me in those moments where it just feels like there's all these things. And so traveling light is so important. And it's not just physically, although that is awesome to do when we're moving to downsize, to, kind of purge. But really, for me, in a lot of these transitions, it was more mental that I needed to travel light in than physical. I needed to mentally not carry the load, whether it be the emotions or the to-do lists or whatever it was. And finding joy in the little things, in the mundane, so to speak, helped me with that. I know for, again, this most recent transition, it's been really, for the most part, very smooth. We were super blessed in the training. They really set us up for success. We had lots of things to help us get us going in this transition. But in this transition specifically, we established something early on to really refresh our souls. Somebody had encouraged us to do that, to just find something that refreshes you and do that consistently. So when we got here, we started just walking together every day, about 30 minutes. And it's like no matter what the day held, we walked together for about 30 minutes. And it has been so refreshing for us. We look forward to it every day. And it's something that really blesses us, refreshes us, and it's done so much for us in this time. And it seems like such a small thing, but those consistent things that we do that refresh our souls can make a big impact because it can help take us out of the focus of the change or the transition, even if just for a little bit, and help us to settle in our minds. Then we get back into it. Then we keep going. And that was just really cool. Kind of along with the non-negotiables, it was kind of one that we added in for our soul life. This is one of our non-negotiable soul life things that we're going to do. So yeah, that was one. And then another thing along the same vein is that it can feel hard to know where to start when it comes to changes or transitions, like Jared alluded to with the, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I know for me, for my job here, I kind of thought that I would be able to get a job a little bit quicker than I did.
Mhm.
And I'm a nurse, and nurses are needed everywhere and all the time. And so I started that process, and it just didn't quite go the way I expected it to. Such is life.
Mhm.
But yeah, somehow I'm still surprised sometimes. So I was applying for jobs. We were also still in the midst of our training. And then after graduation, we were helping support the Rock of Ages festival that our ministry put on in August. So most of our time and effort were very focused on those things. But with spare time, I was applying for jobs, and I just had not had much. And I was really starting to get a little bit discouraged because it started to feel like, what am I doing wrong? I'm not doing enough, all those things that are just so contrary to the reality. But I wasn't traveling light in any way. I was starting to feel the pressure of it. But as we kept going on, I realized, listen, I'm doing my best. I am doing my best right now. I'm focused on serving and helping with this event. And I know the right job's going to be there right when I need it. I can't start it right now anyway. Can't start till we get there. The Rock of Ages Festival was about to start. And I just remember being like, all right, I'm giving it to you, God. I'm not going to allow this to stress me out. And then it was the day before the Rock of Ages, I got a call for an interview the job that I have now. And it was just so cool because it was Ephesians 3:20. It was everything that we needed it to be and more. And what's even cooler too is just a fun example of seeing that, we don't see the full picture all the time. God does, but we don't see the full picture all the time. But we just keep moving forward and trusting in God, knowing He's going to take care of us and He's so faithful to provide. The one thing with this job was the hours weren't like the most ideal. They were okay, but it wasn't like the most ideal. But we talked, Jared and I talked, and we were like, oh, this is the right job. We were very peaceful with it. We knew it was the right thing. And so I took the job. I never said anything about the hours to anyone. And about a month ago now, they just sent us an email that said the hours were changing.
Mm.
And it was to the most ideal schedule that couldn't have, asked up a better schedule. So it's just neat to see that in these times of change and transition, God's faithfulness to provide. And as we do our best, we're not perfect at it, but we do our best to travel light mentally and physically and know that He's the one that makes our way perfect. He never fails us. So,
And I think there's an aspect of traveling light where you have to take the time to recognize if you were traveling heavy. Maybe they don't hear that phrase too much, traveling heavy, but you have to say, wait a second, okay, I'm freaking out about all these things. I'm putting all this pressure on myself. I feel like I have to get everything done immediately. Oh, I'm not traveling light mentally. Let me pray. Let me cast it to God. Let me refresh my soul. Let me make sure are my fundamentals. And I've seen that. It's been something that I've been continuing to work on is when you have so much going on, like if you're in a change and maybe your habits aren't there yet, or you're just trying to get in the groove, and there can be a temptation to put it all on yourself. I've got to work extra hard. I've got to burn the candle at both ends, and I don't have time for a walk. How can I go for a walk? I've got so much to do. And you just have to trust God that, okay, if I take time to refresh my soul and take time to strengthen my relationship with Him and pray, He'll take care of the rest. Like the work will get done, or the thing that I need to do will get done.
yeah.
Let me take care of my priorities. That's a big trust thing,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
Definitely. That kind of plays into managing our expectations. We're believing believers. We believe big, and we believe for God to do amazing things in our lives. And there is a balance to it, though. Sometimes we might put deadlines on God. God didn't tell me to say I would have a job by Friday,
Yeah. Right. Hmm.
but we still believe for that right job. We don't have all the information. God has the big picture. So one thing that's helped me is focusing on what I can do. So, for instance, if I'm looking for a job, I can make a goal to apply for 6 jobs by the end of the week or however many, because I can't force anyone to hire me. I don't know what the perfect job is for me, but God does. So not putting those limits, and really that puts a lot of pressure on me if I'm going to say I'm going to have a job by Friday.
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
And our personal timeline, as we know, doesn't always line up with God.
Hmm.
Another big thing that was so cool and really vivid in this recent change that we're going through right now was finding ways to give, because when you're in a big transition, it takes more thought, it takes more energy and focus. So you do kind of turn inward. You start to focus on what you need to do. And in the thick of our transition, Nancy and I were feeling some of the pressure, some of those, we're not as far along as we'd like to be into this. And are we being as effective? Are we doing enough? And then we had a couple of our good friends call us and they said, "Hey, we're flying through your area in Washington, D.C., and our flight got canceled." And we didn't even let them finish. We said, "We're coming to get you. You're going to let you stay the night, and then we'll take you back to the airport whenever you need." And we didn't hesitate. And it was so cool to see that shift. We were on the give, and it was right in the middle of feeling pressure, but we knew it was the right thing to do. So we picked him up. We talked for 5 hours. We slept for 4. We went to the airport, and the next day was extremely full. We had our Bible study at our house. We had to get ready. I think I was teaching. We had 2 more meetings after that. One of the guys, even when I opened the door and I was like, "Good morning," he goes, "Oh, you look tired." But it was so worth it. And I think it was a big turning point for me and Nancy to really see that when we stopped focusing inward, we looked up and saw, "Oh, no, things are going well. We've made a lot of headway. We're doing fine. And we're ready to focus more on other people." And so that was a refreshing time for us too. Not only do I think our friends got blessed, but we got blessed so much.
That reminds me of one of your other points about support system. And I think there's a connection there. That situation happened. Okay, they called you, they had a need. And I think there's times where you may be going through change and transitions where you don't, maybe there's not something so apparent that here's the need, here's where I can step in and help out. Something that isn't my nature that I've tried to do to push and to give is to call people. I'm just not, I'm a texter, by nature. And I'm like, I don't have time for an hour phone call, that's what, that's what I have to work on. But there's something about talking to people and checking in on them, seeing how they're doing. That can matter so much. That gives you that ability to talk about what you're going through, what you're praying for, and then you can identify needs. You can really minister to people, just staying connected, pushing through that, focusing on your own things and reaching out to others. So I think those are some great keys that you shared. Yeah.
There's a couple more we have in light of these keys to handling transitions. And I think one big one is to not view challenges as failures. I know that's a temptation for me at times. Like, this hasn't happened, it's not a success. And that's not true. And so not to be rattled when the challenges do arise. That, oh, okay, this means that we're not being successful. Because God said that there's going to be tribulation, there will be challenges in life, but He promises us the victory as we believe and as we trust in Him. And Psalm 46:1, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And I love that, a very present help. He's actively present in our lives, in the good times and the bad times, in the hard times and the easy times, to help us. And not all transitions and change are positive things. They're not always moves or new things like that. And so another big key in handling transitions well is taking care of ourselves. Yes, we totally want to be on the give. But then there is a balance to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves too. We were in a situation a few years ago where we were serving and we had to be on the go and we were responsible for people. And in the midst of all of that, someone close to us fell asleep, a friend of ours. And so we're in the middle of this move, this transition, and this happens. And so we had to figure out, how do we continue moving forward, because we couldn't stop. We had to keep moving, but also handle this loss and navigate that. So in the midst of all these emotions and grieving, and then also endeavoring to keep moving forward, I really had to learn what it looks like to take heed unto myself. because just naturally as a person, I'm a mover. I want to keep things moving. I like to keep moving in general. But when this happened, it was really hard for me to stop and just realize this is what I'm feeling. This is tough. And I need to take the time that I need to take care of myself because I was becoming depleted and I didn't have a lot to give.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ministers who was in the area with us, she was just so wonderful. She just really helped me see what that looked like and helped me realize, because I was kind of thinking, okay, I need to be okay by this time. I need to be okay by
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Jared was saying, almost putting a deadline on it.
Yeah.
And that wasn't necessary at all. What I needed to do was, well, first of all, take one day at a time, one moment at a time, and pay attention to how I was feeling and get what I needed. And some days that was rest. And other days that was being part and taking part in the full plan of the day's schedule and being at work and doing all of those things. And so for me, that was really big. And I understand it so much better now, what it looks like in a time of change to take care of ourselves. It is so important because once I did that, once I really took heed unto myself and spent the time I needed, whether it was rest, whether it was just quiet time with God, whatever it was, I was able to walk through that change and on the other side be stronger and be more of a support to others and more of a help to the people that we were with. And so that is also just really important. God knows exactly what we need, and we need to just recognize it in those times. We don't put any sort of deadline on that stuff. We just do our best in each moment, and that can look different some days, and that's okay.
That's great. Oh, thanks for sharing that. So we talked a lot about the keys to overcoming some of the difficult transitions, the things that are challenging with change, but what opportunities have you guys seen in transitions for good?
Yeah, there's definitely opportunity for good. I think of one that I was really excited about when we went on our ministry's outreach program. I had heard stories from other believers, even from Nancy, of they're shining their light at work, they're sharing God's word, and of course, not everybody is like, "Yeah, tell me every day about about God." But when things went wrong, when people had a need, they were going through a tough time, I heard many believers say they might not talk to me about God on the day to day, but when they had a challenge, they came to me and said, "Will you pray for me? What does God say about this?" And so that was something I was looking forward to when I left my previous job. I was a little more reserved, didn't talk too much about God. And then going to a new job, I had that talk with myself. I'm going to be the Christian in the room. I'm going to be the guy who people know if they want somebody to pray for them, I would pray for them. And that's what happened. I was able to make that change. And so when we're in a new situation like that with new people, we have an opportunity because people don't have that preconceived notion of who you are. They're still figuring out how do they treat you and who are you, and you can show right away that I am the Christian in the room. And so that also gives us a chance too, because we don't also fall into those same routines of this is how I act in front of these people. And that's one huge opportunity that I've seen in change.
Mhm.
That's great.
Yeah, I think one too that's really kind of fun, I think, is to view change. I maybe have said it a few times, like viewing it as an adventure, these like transitions and changes. I remember growing up, almost anytime, there was something that we needed to go do, whether it was a family vacation or maybe it was something when you wouldn't think is the most fun, a change that was happening. But we would always frame it as like, this is a family adventure that we're going on. And that really, I feel like it helped my mind, even as an adult. I naturally kind of view things that way. When a transition or change comes up, like, oh, we're moving, or this job change, or something like that, I really try to meet it, even though there's a lot of things and, to think about, but I try to meet it with that sense of like, this is an exciting adventure with God. And I'm so excited to see what he's going to do for us and how he's going to take care of us. And it can seem like a really small thing, but that small mindset shift from just not focusing on the like, oh man, this is big, can do so much. And then also too, in changes, like Jared was saying, kind of reworking ourselves, and there's lots that we can do to build good habits or change habits that maybe we want to change. But with that too is just starting small and staying faithful to like one thing. I know for me, I can tend to, when I get excited about a change, I'm like, there's all these things I'm going to do. I'm going to change all these things. And it's good. It's a good thing. But sometimes I bite off a little more than I can chew. And then I end up a little discouraged because I didn't maybe make it as far in any of them. But when we just start with one thing, like if it's, okay, I am going to maybe the walk thing, like we're going to walk, or I'm going to wake up at this time and read the word first thing for this long, or just whatever it is, just starting with one thing and becoming super faithful at that one thing and then building on that. And it will be so great because we'll see the results in that. And then it'll be like, okay, now I can do more, kind of like with the capacity growing. We'll be like, okay, now I can maybe adjust this or try this. But that can really be a big opportunity and changes to build those good habits and maybe make changes that before I hadn't done yet or hadn't stuck with. So yeah, those are just a couple of opportunities we have in change and transition.
Jared, what was that comment or that phrase you said something about things not being able to grow in their comfort zone?
Yeah, just nothing grows in our comfort zone.
Nothing grows in our comfort zone. Yeah, I think about that in some of the more challenging transitions that I've had when, you start to get into it and see the opportunity that there is for growth when you're challenged, when you're going through something new. Oh my gosh, you end up just so appreciating that opportunity to be challenged, to prove God in new situations, to learn something new, to get to go to a new place or something like that. I mean, I've changed schools, I think like before the 8th grade or something. You could say, okay, lose all your friends, but I met my wife at the next school. So there's so many things that are ahead of us that God has planned for us that we just don't see yet. So I think change can be a wonderful thing, especially if we apply these keys that these wonderful guests of ours have shared with us. So before we go, is there anything else that you guys wanted to share or talk about on this subject?
Yeah, I wanted to add just one thing that really helped me, especially with my job currently. I shared a little bit about how it was out of my comfort zone. I hadn't done my job in 3 years and was getting back into it. And I found myself, this was one of those like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was doing this. But I found myself being like, if I can just get through 1 month at my job, then I'll be good. Like all of the change, I'll settle in, I'll feel fine. And then it was once I get through this 1 week, or once I have a couple of meetings, then I'll be good at meetings again, and it'll all be fine. And then I was like, Jared, you are waiting for this to happen, for this circumstance to happen, for you to feel peaceful at work
Yeah.
or to feel like you're good enough to do your job. And I was focusing on the wrong thing. I wasn't focusing on God and what he does for me and how I can be a conqueror in any situation. And so just not waiting for the change to be over, enjoying the process. Because yeah, like you said, Taylor, it's not always as fun in the moment, but then we do appreciate it at some point because we know that we got stronger and we conquered things in our lives. So just not getting in that mindset of once this is over, then I'm good. But we can have that peace, we can have that joy in the midst of all of these changes.
Yeah. And remembering that God goes before us in everything. He knows everything that we're going to experience and already has the solutions. And remembering that in the transitions and in the change can be difficult at times because we want to see it, but he has gone before us and he knows. So no matter what it is that we might be going through, whatever type of transition or change, we can really rest in that reality and know that we can walk through change powerfully because it's he who strengthens us. It's him who provides everything that we need. And we don't ever have to look at a change or a transition like starting over. Like, oh, this is changing again. And now I'm starting over. It's no. I've grown, my capacity has grown, and God is still with me. And he's going to help me get to this next thing or through this change or transition. And it's so cool that as believers, we have the gift of Holy Spirit. We have this power that we can walk through life with because it gives us such peace to know that, like, no matter the circumstance, we're going to be taken care of. And we get to be such a witness to other people to help them see that reality for themselves. So
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Well, it's been a great conversation with you guys. Appreciate your time and sharing your lives, all the different things that you've gone through, what you've learned. I think for all of those of you out there who are going through a transition or a new season of life, new job, new school year, a change, whatever it may be, we trust that this episode is going to give you a lot to think about, help you lean on God, the one who doesn't change, and be able to walk powerfully through it. So, Jared and Nancy, thanks so much for joining us.
thanks for
Thanks, Taylor. This was awesome.
All right. That's it, folks. Love you. Bless you.
Thank you, Taylor, Jared, and Nancy for that uplifting conversation. I love hearing what God can do when people say yes, even when the path feels unfamiliar or the timing feels unexpected. Listening to their journey makes me think about how many times God has strengthened my walk through change by giving me just the right truth at the right moment.
And I think their approach, staying positive, staying prayerful, and staying open, is something anyone can apply. Change doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be a place where we see God work the most.
If this episode encouraged you, please take a moment to share it. Send it to a friend who's navigating something new. Sharing these podcast episodes are such a simple way to help get God's word out to more people.
Yo, Sierra, don't forget, we've got a big milestone coming up.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Do you want to tell our listeners about it?
Absolutely. Hey, our 50th episode is coming up next, and we cannot wait to share it with you. We're going to have a little fun with this one, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. So keep an eye out for that drop. And of course, there's a sneak peek for that episode coming up.
Thank you so much for listening, for sharing, and for being a part of something that is near and dear to all of our hearts. We'll be with you next time as we celebrate 50 episodes of Lighting the Way today.
We let God's word shine in our life. He lights the path. What a show. That was God's word in conversation, nothing but the truth. A podcast backed up by biblical proof. And the show keeps rolling, can't miss the next edition. What's happening next? Turn it up and take a listen. After a while, I said, you know what? Why don't I try this rapping thing? After much practice, and I'm telling you, much practice, I started freestyling in those groups right along with them. And as I kept going, words were starting to come together, words that actually rhymed. So things just started to work out, just one thing on top of another. I just think that musical exposure that I kept having kickstarted this journey to rapping. Also, in our ministry's leadership training program, you spend a massive amount of time in God's word, gaining some real depth. And I tell you what, that helped in my songwriting because I was able to expand on topics. I had more to write about, and it helped me put together lyrics actually more easily. Spending that time in the word has helped me become a better teacher and has improved my songwriting.
Thanks for listening to Lighting the Way today. Join us next time as we discuss biblical topics, letting the Word of God light our way in life.